So there was this huge lawsuit against the National Association of Realtors, and it just got permanently shut down. But how? How does a case with such serious claims just end? Well, that's exactly what we're going to break down.
Okay, so for anyone in the real estate world, this was a big deal, a really big legal battle. And for the National Association of Realtors, or NAR as you probably know them, that battle just ended completely.
Yeah, it didn't just fizzle out. It was permanently dismissed. So the big question is, how did we get here? To really get it, we've got to rewind and look at how this whole thing started.
All right, so the case we're talking about is Sheth versus NAR. And just recently, a federal judge in Illinois handed down a final ruling that, well, brought the whole thing to a screeching halt.
And the verdict? It was crystal clear. Dismissed with prejudice. Now, you're going to hear that phrase a lot, with prejudice. Those two little words are everything here. They're the reason this story is actually truly over. And don't worry, we'll get into exactly what that means in just a bit.
Okay, so before we dive into the legal stuff, we need to get the basics down. Who were the key players here, and what was this fight even about?
So on one side, you've got the plaintiff, Roshani Sheth. She was a product manager at NAR, and she was alleging some really serious stuff, wrongful termination and discrimination. And on the other side, of course, is NAR, who denied everything. But Sheth's lawsuit had another layer. She claimed that NAR broke an earlier settlement agreement because they wouldn't even confirm she worked there. And that makes it pretty tough to find a new job.
And look, her lawsuit wasn't just some vague complaint. She laid out some very specific, very serious allegations. We're talking discrimination based on sex and her national origin, sexual harassment, unequal treatment. She even said she was passed over for a promotion. And what turned out to be really key here, retaliation for filing an internal complaint about all of this.
Something like this doesn't just pop up out of nowhere. This case was years in the making. The road to that final judgment was a long one.
Okay, so check out this timeline. It all kicks off back in June 2019 when Sheth files an internal complaint. Just a few months later, in October, she's let go. By December, they reach an initial settlement. But things clearly didn't end there, because fast forward to June 2024 and she files this lawsuit in federal court. About a year later, a judge dismisses most of her claims, but, and this is a big but, she gets another shot and files an amended complaint. Remember that part, it becomes super important.
And that brings us right to the core of it all, the judge's final ruling. Why was that second attempt, that amended complaint, shot down so permanently?
All right, so here's the money quote right from the judge's decision. Judge Alexakis basically said that the plaintiff failed to identify an adverse action that was taken by NAR and was causally connected to her complaint. In plain English, she couldn't prove two absolutely critical things, that NAR did something bad to her and that they did it because of her complaint. You need both for a retaliation claim to stick.
So, let's break that down. What exactly is an adverse action? In the eyes of the law, it's not just your boss being a jerk or something you don't like. It has to be a major negative career event. We're talking getting fired, demoted, or maybe reassigned to a dead-end job, something that really hurts your professional life. The court needed to see hard proof of that.
So here's the court's thinking, broken down real simple. For a retaliation claim to even have a chance, you have to connect the dots. You have to prove without a doubt that point A, your complaint, directly caused point B, the company taking negative action against you. And in this case, the judge looked at the new amended lawsuit and said, nope, that link just isn't there, it's not proven.
And here's why the judge decided to shut the door completely. The ruling pointed out that the plaintiff had already been given multiple chances to make her case. That amended complaint, that was her second shot. So in the court's view, she'd had her opportunity. And that brings us full circle back to those two little words with a whole lot of power, with prejudice. See, this isn't just the judge saying case dismissed. This is the judge saying case dismissed and you can never bring this claim again. It's permanent. It's over. Because the court felt she had had her chances and couldn't prove it, the book is officially closed on this one. It really is the legal version of the end.
Okay, so the case is over, it's permanently closed. What's the big takeaway here? What does this all mean?
Well, for their part, NAR was pretty clear on how they felt. A spokesperson put out a statement saying the organization was, quote, pleased that the court has correctly dismissed this case in a well-reasoned decision. After that, they didn't really have anything else to say about it. But when you zoom out, this specific case really highlights a much bigger issue.
It shows just how incredibly high the bar is to legally prove workplace retaliation. It's a tough lesson that it's not enough to feel like you were wronged. You have to be able to build this ironclad case showing that direct cause and effect link that can survive a courtroom. And maybe the biggest question this whole thing leaves us with is about that burden of proof, just how heavy it is for an employee to carry in these kinds of incredibly difficult situations.